All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I hope that you find this very valuable. We put a lot of time into this, so I'm hopeful that you leave here with knowing something more than you did before, okay? So today's seminar is talking about the MyFitnessPal food recipes and the food scale. So hopefully you come knowing something about MyFitnessPal, and maybe if you don't know anything about MyFitnessPal, you'll learn something today about MyFitnessPal. A little bit about myself. My name is Lexi Nussbaum. I am the head coach here at PowerPose Nutrition. I think most of you guys are familiar with me, but my full-time role is managing this gym here and then Zephyr's Fitness right beside us. And I started PowerPose in September of last year because I saw people come in and day out, and they worked so hard in the gym, but they were not getting the results that they wanted. And I knew that nutrition was a huge piece of it. So I knew that I had the answer, but there was nothing formal set in stone until September. So I worked really hard to get the education, the certifications to officially be qualified to embark on PowerPose Nutrition. PowerPose Nutrition is a one-on-one, online, completely digital-based nutrition coaching company. So we specialize in very customized plans for individuals based on their goals. So last seminar we talked about, this was in January, we talked about macronutrients and just food choices in general. And that's what PowerPose is based upon. We talk a lot about macronutrients, but in addition to that, we are very whole food focused. And so our niche market, you could say, is whole foods, eating those whole foods, but knowing the correct quantity of what to eat. So I'll let Andrea introduce herself.
Okay, so I'm Andrea. I'm the assistant coach for PowerPose, and my full-time job, I actually work at Smucker's full-time and do coaching on the side. But one of the things that when we were trying to come up with a topic for today's seminar, like Lexi said, in January we had done a seminar all about macros and calories, and we wanted to build on that. And in terms of like daily, like how we track all of our calories and macros, Lexi and I, along with most of our clients, use MyFitnessPal. And MyFitnessPal can definitely be a little bit of a learning curve for people in the beginning. But MyFitnessPal has a lot of useful tools and tricks and stuff built into it that if you know how to use those, it makes logging a lot easier and faster. So that's one thing that a lot of our clients struggle with in the beginning, is that and how to use their food scale. So we really wanted to help bridge that gap between using your food scale and learning more tips in MyFitnessPal so that it's not so overwhelming. So that's how we kind of came up with this topic today. So Lexi is going to go over the agenda.
Awesome. So today's plan, like Andrea mentioned, we're going to talk about the food scale. We're going to practice how to use our food scales. Then we're going to talk about MyFitnessPal recipes. I'll give you a little bit of a how to do that. You'll be broken up in your groups here. And then after that, we'll actually practice. So speaking of groups, this group on my far left is led by Tony. Wave your hand. Wave your hand, Tony. Woo! All right. In the middle, Lindsay. And then on the far right-hand side is Maddie. So come on down, schmattles. So if you have any questions as we go, you can ask your group leaders or you can ask one of us too. That's no problem.
Okay, so like we said, starting out, we're going to be talking about the food scale first. So with your food scale, or you can kind of view your food scale as a tool in your kitchen. So you likely already have other tools in your kitchen that you use to measure out food. So things like measuring cups, measuring spoons, your tablespoons, teaspoons, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm sure everybody in your kitchen has those tools in your kitchen. You use them regularly. So a food scale is just another tool to measure out your foods. So today we're going to talk about why that's important and how to use your food scale.
Okay, so why is the food scale important? I think the one thing that we want to get out of the way is that it's not a point of restriction. The idea sometimes that people have in their head is when they have a food scale or they use a food scale, maybe they think it's pretty normal, but they tell a friend or a family member and they freak out. Like, what? You cared that much about what you eat that you have a food scale? No, it's just a tool like the 1 cup measuring cup that you have in your drawer. So in addition to that, though, some people will take the approach of, oh, I just eyeball it and I'm sure it's close. I know what a tablespoon is. I've been doing this for a long time. And studies have shown that That's not necessarily the case. People tend to underestimate high caloric foods like peanut butter or nuts, salad dressing. So when they grab a handful of almonds as a snack, while an almond is a great snack, when they grab a handful, a lot of times they actually grab a lot more than they think. Additionally, you've all heard, or maybe this has happened to you, when you go to the grocery store and you're hungry, you buy everything. Same concept here. When you're hungry, generally you eyeball a little more than what's actually on your plate. So if you read this quote here, studies have found that most people underestimate their portion sizes, especially for high-calorie foods such as peanut butter, nuts, sausage, and salad dressings. And if you're hungry, research suggests that you'll miscalculate portion sizes to a greater degree than you would after eating a meal. Sandy's nodding. Good. I can always count on you, Sandy. That's great. So in addition to that accuracy, that improved accuracy, again, it's just a data point, not supposed to be restrictive, helps to control portion size. As we'll talk about here in a little bit, it does create less dishes, which is awesome. And then just knowing is really a powerful thing.
Okay, so now that you know why you should be using your food scale, let's talk about different ways to use your food scale. So there's really two different methods, and we call them the takeaway method or the add to method. So really the thing to remember here is the relationship between the ingredient that you're trying to measure and the scale. So we'll go over a couple examples, starting with the takeaway method. So in this example, we're going to use a salad, and we're trying to measure how much salad dressing we are putting onto our salad. So in the takeaway method, we're going to figure out how much dressing we're taking away from the scale and putting onto our salad. So to start, you're going to have like your salad on the countertop in your bowl and your salad dressing on your scale. And the important first step is to zero out your scale. So your scale is reading 0 grams. Then you're going to pick up your salad dressing, add it to your salad, and then the last important step is to return the salad dressing back to the scale. At that point, your scale is going to read a negative number, and that negative number represents how much salad dressing you have taken away from the scale and added to your salad. A few other examples of how you could use this takeaway method would be, let's say, for example, you have logged your food in MyFitnessPal and you're planning to eat some bread and butter, and you know that you have 5 grams of butter allocated for your breakfast or whatever meal it is. You can set your butter on your food scale, zero it out, and then grab your knife and take away butter until you get to -5 grams on your scale, and then add that to your bread. Or another example could be spaghetti. So you could have your pot of boiling water and you know how much spaghetti you want to eat beforehand. Let's say you look at the box and you log 1 serving of spaghetti, and 1 serving weighs 56 grams. You can set your spaghetti box on the scale, zero it out, and then just remove spaghetti until the scale reads -56, and then add that to your pot. So those are a few examples of the takeaway method. The important thing is to always log it however you, or track it however you weight it. So you can look up in MyFitnessPal, you can look up like raw pasta. Most of the time that's what I do. Or you can look up like cooked pasta as well. So if you weigh it cooked, if you weigh 2 ounces of cooked pasta, you want to log 2 ounces of cooked pasta. If you weigh out 2 ounces of raw pasta, you want to log 2 ounces of raw pasta.
And then let me follow up. What if you, now let me say it this way. Generally, cooked pasta is double the weight of raw pasta. So for example, do you have a question? Correct, because that's what's in, yes. Yep. So let's say the box says the serving size is 2 ounces of rice. Okay, 2 ounces of rice, and the rice in there is uncooked. So that means 2 ounces of uncooked rice is 35 grams of carbs. Do your cooking, whatever you're doing. Then when you serve yourself 4 ounces. That equals 35 grams of carbs.
Okay, so then going into the add to method. So with this, your setup's going to be opposite. So now you're trying to measure how much salad dressing you're adding to the scale. So you're going to start with your salad on your food scale and zero it out. and then pick up your salad dressing and add it to the salad that is sitting on your scale. And when you're done pouring your salad dressing, you're gonna see a number on your scale that's positive. So in this example on the screen, you can see it says 30 grams. So in this example, I've added 30 grams of salad dressing to my salad, and I know that's how much I need to log into MyFitnessPal. A few other examples of the add to method. So baking is a really common thing. So I've got an example of muffins up here, but it could be cookies or pancakes or cake or whatever it is that you're baking. You can put your mixing bowl on your food scale, zero it out, and then one by one add your ingredients. So you would add your flour and you add a certain number of grams or ounces and zero it out. Add your sugar, add a certain grams or ounces and zero it out. And you can go one by one, adding each ingredient, being sure to zero your scale out in between adding the ingredients. Same thing for like a protein shake. Again, you could put your blender right on your food scale, zero it out. Let's say you want to put 4 ounces of milk in. So you just pour your milk until the scale reads 4 ounces and then zero it out. Then you want to add your protein powder and you want to add 30 grams. So you change your scale to grams, add protein powder until it reads 30 grams, zero it out. And you can just keep doing that, adding ingredients one by one. Yeah, so let me repeat. So you were saying most food scales have different units that you can select between. So example, grams or ounces or pounds or fluid ounces, whatever. So if you set your salad dressing on your food scale, zero it out, add however much salad dressing and put it back on, you're gonna see in the example we said, negative 30 grams. But if you want to log that as like fluid ounces, you could just change the unit button until you get to fluid ounces.
Yes, the question was, why can't I just measure things out with a tablespoon or a cup if that's what the recipe calls for? And you can, you absolutely can. The catch is when we do recipes in MyFitnessPal, you do have to use the scale at least at the last step. And so sometimes it can be easier, which this is what we're going to go into in part 2 of this, it can be easier to just build the whole recipe on the scale. I would say from personal experience, it probably cuts down my recipe making time, like physically making sloppy joes, at least in half, if not more, because I'm not finicking with all the things. I just have one giant bowl and I'm just dumping per the scale. So it does cut down on time, but you wouldn't have to do that. Yes. Yeah, so I'll just repeat this so the recording hears it, and that is, when looking for a scale, you want to find one ideally that's flat, which are all of these 3 here as an example, and one that's big enough that when you put a plate, regular sized dinner plate or a mixing bowl or something on it, it's not raised that it hides the numbers. Oh, neat. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So Tony mentioned on Amazon there might be a scale that pulls out, the face pulls out so that you can actually read it, which also would solve the problem too. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of cut off for just a little bit. We're going to walk around and just have the groups work together on this activity. So what the activity is going to do is accomplish 2 things. One, we're going to test your eyeballing skills, and 2, we're going to practice using the scale. So how I'd like for the activity to go is, group leaders, you're kind of going to be in charge here, but you're going to set the peanut butter on the scale. You're going to zero out the scale, and you're just going to kind of put your finger over top of the numbers on the scale. Then have somebody in your group take the spoon, and I want them to pull out as much as they want. Now they're going to know how much they want by looking at the nutrition label or the ingredient list, okay? So the nutrition label is what shows the calories, carbs, proteins, and fats. So we're just going to pretend in their diet for the day, well, they can decide, but let's say for this example, they can fit 1 tablespoon of peanut butter at this certain meal. So I'd like for you to help them turn the label around, look and see how many grams is 1 tablespoon, and then they're going to attempt to eyeball that, and we're going to see how close they are to 1 tablespoon or whatever they choose. Okay? So let's practice eyeballing and also working with the scale. Okay, so raise your hand if you tried and you pulled out exactly what you were looking for. Okay. Raise your hand if you tried and you pulled out more than you were looking for. You pulled out more than you were looking for. Okay, okay. Raise your hand and if you pulled out less than you were looking for. Cool. How much was the space between what you were looking for and what you pulled out? Like 4 grams or 10 grams? A 2 and a 6. Cool. Sandy, what was yours? You were looking for 16 and you got 22, right? Okay. So this is just an example, and I know Sandy will be a good sport on this. On your fingers. Perfect segue. So my point is, if you are trying to be relatively precise, in this example, she was wanting 16 grams. She got 22 grams by eyeballing it. That's 35 more calories just in that instance. So if you do that over and over and over, even throughout the day, it just adds up. And when we talk about in January, like we talked about, being 80% consistent, you can think you're consistent and actually be trying quite hard, but eyeballing it, and that's kind of ruling out your consistency. Now, we're talking to people in this instance with untrained eyes. If you've done this for a long time, you have the capability to do what's called intuitively eat. So essentially, you don't have to live by the scale forever, but you do have to live by the scale long enough to consider yourself a successful intuitive eater. And so I won't put myself or Andrea on the spot, but I have been practicing this last week just to make sure. I can pretty much get 16 to 7, if I want 16 grams, I can get within 1 gram plus or minus of what I want because I've done it for so long, and that would be what's called intuitive eating. Does anybody have a question on that? Okay, we're gonna get back to our groups here, but first we're gonna talk through what we're looking for in the MyFitnessPal recipe section of the day. So, within your packet is an orange chicken recipe. This recipe actually comes from our Power Pose Nutrition recipes that we have online for our clients. So if you're a client and you haven't seen this yet, look harder because it's out there. But if you're not a client, just know that we have tons and tons of recipes. We also have food swaps for our clients. And we also have information guides that just cover information about fitness, nutrition, health in general, all sorts of things, because one of our biggest priorities at Power Pose is helping the clients be educated. So that orange chicken recipe is what we are going to go through here. Andrea is going to talk about how to start inputting a recipe.
Okay, so this next segment of the presentation or seminar is meant to be interactive, so we're gonna be giving you guys time to actually pull out your phones, and our goal with this is that everybody leaves the room having created a recipe. So when you create recipes, the first couple of times can be a little bit difficult, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. So we want to help you all make sure that you successfully create your first recipe in MyFitnessPal. So everybody's welcome to pull out their phones, and we're going to go step by step creating a recipe in MyFitnessPal together. If you guys do have little questions along the way, you're welcome to ask us or ask your group leaders, and we'll make sure you guys have plenty of time to get everything, get caught up. So we're going to start out by opening up the MyFitnessPal app, and down in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little button, which I think it's blue, that says More, and it has like 3 dots next to it. You can start by clicking that. And then you're gonna look down the list of items and find one that says My Meals, Recipes, and Foods, and start by tapping that. And then there's gonna be the option to create a recipe. Is everybody finding that okay? Okay, so once you click that, you're going to have 2 options down at the bottom. There's going to be an option to enter it from the web or manually enter the ingredients. We recommend manually entering the ingredients. While entering it from the web might sound like a cool feature, there's a lot of problems with it. So I definitely recommend manually entering. So once you select manually enter, it's going to take you to a screen where you can enter in the recipe name and the number of servings. So today we're building the orange chicken recipe that you guys all have in front of you. So you can put orange chicken as the recipe name, And then for the number of servings, right now, you're just going to put a random number. You can put whatever you want in there. We're going to come back at the end and put in the correct serving size. So is everybody up to that point? Do you guys all have a recipe name and a number of servings? Yep, okay. So you should be at a screen where you're able to start adding ingredients. Yes, Lindsay? Yes, yeah, there's a little option at the bottom that says like bulk import. It automatically is set to no. You can just leave that as no. So there's going to be, I think it's a blue button that says add ingredients. So we're going to start adding ingredients. There are several different ways to get ingredients into MyFitnessPal. We're going to use 2 of them today, and these are the most common 2 that you'll use. The first one is called searching the database. So MyFitnessPal has a database built up of all sorts of different ingredients already in the app. So you can search that database by looking, there's a little search bar at the top of the menu, or you can use a barcode scanner. So for almost anything that has a barcode, you can just scan the barcode and scan in the ingredient, and it'll find it in the database for you. So we'll go through examples of both of these today.
Okay, is everyone doing okay? Cool. So let's look at the recipe that's in front of us. The first ingredient is sesame oil. It calls for 1 tablespoon of sesame oil. So like Sue mentioned in the beginning, you could totally take your tablespoon from home and dump the sesame oil in the tablespoon and put it in the recipe. That's totally fine. But as you'll see, we do need the food scale at the very end for this recipe. So, and we're talking about learning how to use the food scale better. So why not just use the food scale for this whole recipe? So if you look at the sesame oil that's on your table there, you will notice that the nutrition facts, or the ingredient, the label on the back, says 1 tablespoon equals 15 milliliters. Okay. So we are going to use the scan function in MyFitnessPal to scan the barcode on that sesame oil. So let's have everybody scan the barcode. And while we do that, if you'd like to pour it into the bowl to see what 15 milliliters looks like, or just to practice with your scale, that's fine too. Okay, so I think we're going to move on to the next ingredient. Is anybody any person have a question or want us to pause? Just keep rolling. Jess is like, I got this. All right, the next ingredient on the recipe is chicken. 1 pound of ground chicken. So now we're going to practice using the search function in MyFitnessPal. So we're not going to scan the barcode, we're going to search. Group leaders can help you, but one tip when searching for foods in MyFitnessPal is try to be as formal as possible. As an example, Gerber's Amish Farm all white meat ground chicken would be something you could put in the search bar. Additionally, this would not necessarily be for this recipe, but this is important. Let's pretend you got orange juice from the farmer's market. It has no label. You're like, how do I track it? I can't scan the barcode. I have no idea who or what even made it. Our suggestion would be, think of a brand that makes orange juice, Tropicana. Search for Tropicana orange juice because those macros are going to be very similar, if not the exact same, as the farmer's market orange juice. So the tip here is think about brands that you know. Even if you're out at a restaurant, I'll always track Gerber's chicken because I know that I have a trustworthy Gerber's chicken input. So let's practice. Go ahead. Yes. 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 Yeah, so if it's Driscoll's or like Farmer's Market or whatever, all strawberries are the same. Yes. Okay, I'm going to say one thing too, and then I'll answer Timmy's question. The one thing I want to say is you might notice the input that you find, or the diary, what do you call that? Yeah, but like The result, yeah, the result that you find does not have the correct serving size, or it's in grams, for instance. Click on that gram, find 1 pound, and then use that. However, when you do that, you just want to make sure the macros change, because some inputs in MyFitnessPal are incorrect. So if you change the serving size from grams to pounds and you manipulate how many and nothing happens with the calories, carbs, proteins, or fats, it's a bad entry. Timmy. Yes. Looking at the label is key, and then just practice. Like Timmy said, this is exactly right. If you search something like chicken and your entry shows like 10 grams of protein for a pound of chicken, you should have a red flag in your mind that that's not right. So find another entry and try it again. Yes, that would be fine. Quite frankly, some people are a lot more precise than me, but I am not a huge person in this field of being precise. I don't necessarily find raw or cooked. I just kind of find what it is, yeah. Yeah. If you could find this exact one, that would be ideal. It's written ground chicken, parentheses, all white meat. And you could double check this if you had the chicken in front of you. You could look and see that your entry was close or exactly as the chicken label. So the next 3 ingredients on there are ginger root, garlic cloves, and chili garlic sauce. As a beginner, and quite frankly, to save time, those 3 foods do not have enough calories or even really calories at all to impact the recipe. So that's why we recommend forgetting about them. So we're not going to scan or try to search for any of those 3. In life, ever. Correct. Yes. They are nourishing. They have micronutrients, but they aren't going to move the needle on your macros, and that's the main focus.
So basically she's saying that you'll still put those ingredients when you're physically cooking. You're just not building it into your recipe in MyFitnessPal because it doesn't have any calories or anything like that.
They're free.
Yes, they're free.
Free food. Hallelujah. We finally got there. 3 of them. That's right.
Yeah, I get this question about certain ingredients from clients a lot about, do I log certain herbs or spices or things like that? Those don't have any or very, very little calories associated with them. So it's not worth the time to go add those in. So you'll kind of learn as you go. You might, when you're building a recipe or logging a food, the first time you make it, you might go to search garlic and add it and realize like, oh, that's 2 calories. Why did I even waste my time finding that? And you'll find different things as you do it that you're like, oh, I don't need to log that in the future. So you'll learn those things as you go.
Okay, is everybody ready to go on to the next step? Cool. So the next ingredient in the recipe is an orange, a medium orange. So let's use the search function in MyFitnessPal to find 1 medium navel orange. Go. Over time, you just start to understand that an orange about this size is going to be 15 to 20 carbs. Awesome. If you wanted to really know, if you were new, you could back out and look at another entry, and it probably has very similar macros. So if you can verify just on your own with 2 or 3 entries, then you're like, okay, cool, I had a good one. Ours says 15 carbs, 0.5 fat, 1 protein. For no reason besides it was one that came up.
So you'll notice when you search, like if you search your navel orange, there's a ton of different entries that come up, and some of them have like a little green check mark and some don't. The green check mark basically means that it was validated by MyFitnessPal. Now, we do recommend, like when I search something in MyFitnessPal, I'm going to gravitate towards looking at things that have green check marks because there's a higher chance that they're going to be accurate. It doesn't mean 100% of the time they're going to be accurate still, but in the example of the orange, if I'm going to do what Lexi said, I want to check 2 or 3 different entries. I'm going to go find, I'm going to search a navel orange and pick on 2 or 3 that have a green check mark and compare those to see if they're all similar, and then just pick one of them. Yes, so one of the things with MyFitnessPal, a feature that it has, is that you're able to create a food in MyFitnessPal, and that's part of how that database is created that you're searching. So I can go in and create a food, and it's going to show up in everybody's database. This is good and bad. It's good when you want to create a food, but you can't always trust everybody and the information that they're putting in. Sometimes you'll search something and you'll find an orange that has 10 grams of protein and no carbs, and you're like, how is that possible? So part of the reason behind that is that people will make adjustments to the foods that they're entering based on, if they're eating a ketogenic diet, for example, they take out net carbs. So they take out fiber. So they'll go in and create a food that has the fiber taken out of it, which decreases the carbs and decreases the calories. There's different examples like that, but people will go in and create entries that might not always be accurate. So that's why you have to go in and verify that you're picking the right thing.
And that's just not our philosophy. So we, as PowerPose nutrition coaches, assign individual macro sets for individual clients. So there's no need for the net carb type deal. Just straight up what it is how we want people to track. Okay. How is this group doing over here? Tony lost control 5 minutes in. Okay, so we are going to move on. This next section, you just gotta buckle your seatbelt and turn on your listening ears. Ears open, mouth closed. Okay, the recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of coconut aminos. So coconut aminos, if you've never even heard of them, is a soy sauce alternative. A lot less sodium and a lot better ingredients, tastes just the same. So coconut aminos if you want to get some at the grocery store. Now, we know that 1 tablespoon equals 3 teaspoons. We know that because Google tells us, your Alexa tells you. We also put a unit conversion sheet in your packet. That will tell you. Yes. The reason why we care about converting this is if you turn your coconut aminos over, you will notice the serving size is in teaspoons. So even if you literally don't care about macros or tracking, and the recipe called for 3 tablespoons, you would need to figure out how to convert the teaspoons to tablespoons if you want it to be accurate. Next, based on math, we know that 3 tablespoons equals 9 teaspoons. So for this recipe, we need 9 teaspoons or 45 milliliters. So we're gonna pause right there.
It's only in so if you're building a recipe in your MyFitnessPal, it's only going to show up in your recipes. Yes, and so great, that's a great question. So she was wondering, can you share recipes? So yes, you can share recipes with other people. So if, an example, me and Tony do this all the time. I'll build a recipe, we'll make dinner, I'll log the recipe in my MyFitnessPal, and then I can share it with him, or he can come into my diary and copy it because we're eating the same dinner, for example.
Okay, so that completes all of the ingredients in the recipe, correct? Look at that list, we got them all. All the ones that matter for this instance. So at this point, we are going to adjust the number of servings that this made. So there are 2 options when it comes to setting the servings, the number of servings made. Option 1 is counting how many items, like muffins, you made. You made 12 muffins, number of servings made, 12. The second option is weighing the total quantity that you made. The reason why you would weigh the total quantity is so that when you scoop out what you are going to eat, you have an accurate reflection of how many servings you just consumed. So in this instance, the orange chicken, would we use option 1 or option 2? 2. We would use option 2. Now, option 2 takes practice. You have to plan ahead a little bit, or you have to be okay with, if you make a casserole, dissecting it to get the total quantity made. If you're making a casserole, weighing the baking dish before you start anything, putting masking tape on it, I have that on my stuff. Andrea made a chart for her kitchen, so like you could do that. Okay, you roll your eyes, but it really works, okay? So knowing how much your baking dishes weigh is what needs to happen. Alternatively, if you make food in a crock pot, for example, you don't store food in a crock pot. So when you go to dump it out, put your open, maybe you do store food in a crock pot. You don't do that. Once you go to scoop out your food, get a big glass dish, put it on your scale, zero it out, and scrape all the pulled chicken that you made, and what number is showing is your total number of servings.
So just to kind of relate that back to our orange chicken recipe, so I know we didn't walk through the actual steps to make this, but you're going to cook your chicken and add all of your ingredients for the sauce all into a pan. So when this ingredient's done cooking, you've got a bunch of chicken and sauce in a pan. So like Lexi said, with option 2, what you could do in this scenario would be take your mixing bowl, set it on your food scale, zero it out, and then use a spoon to scoop all of the chicken and sauce into that mixing bowl that's on the scale, and then you'll know the total amount that you made of that recipe.
And this is a little confusing, but you have to think of it every gram in this instance. So for this recipe, you can all put 530, because if you make it as it was written, it will be at 530 or close. So 530 servings were made. 1 gram is 1 serving. It's like this big, so it's not technically, don't just eat this much, okay? But when you scoop out 125 grams, you're going to input, when you track it, 125 servings of that food, of that recipe. Yep, and so then when you track that recipe for the day, let's say you made it last night and you're having it as leftovers today, and you scoop out from your container in the refrigerator on your plate and 200 grams pops up, then when you go to track orange chicken, you're going to type in 200 servings. And that will be the correct macros of what you consumed.
So with this method, the first time you ever make a recipe, there is this added step where you have to figure out what that total serving is. But the nice thing is that after you make it one time, now the recipe is built, you have the serving set. So as long as you follow similar quantities of your ingredients, the next time you go to make the recipe, you already have it built. So you don't have to get a bowl, zero it out, weigh the whole thing, because you've already done that step. So the next time you go make the recipe, all you have to do is just get the bowl that you're going to eat out of. You've got your orange chicken in your pan, it's cooked, ready to go. You just get your plate that you're going to eat, set it on your food scale, scoop out how much you want. It weighs 200 grams. Okay, cool. I've already got that recipe built. I'm going to adjust my serving size to 200 grams and move on. So the first time you make a recipe, you're going to have this step. But then the next time you make it, and forever in the future when you make it, you don't ever have to do that again.
Okay, so basically this concludes our presentation. We'd love to answer any questions that you have. If you'd like to look specifically at sharing diaries with friends in MyFitnessPal, we can talk about that too. Otherwise, you are free to go. So I hope you learned something, and if not, you have this recipe in MyFitnessPal, so you can just keep eating orange chicken until you're sick of it enough to try another recipe. Thank you guys for coming.